I think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a mistake at our wedding that anyone could have made. But now, just a year later, I'm sitting here with divorce papers in my hand, all because of one kiss caught on camera and a husband who refuses to forgive me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Marilla Vane, and this is the story of how my entire world fell apart over what I still believe was nothing more than a moment of weakness. Everyone makes mistakes, right? But apparently, some mistakes are unforgivable, at least according to my soon-to-be ex-husband Joel. The living room felt suffocating that evening, despite the late spring breeze drifting through our suburban home's open windows. Maya, our 6-year-old daughter, had finally gone to bed after asking for the third time why Daddy seemed so quiet lately. I'd given her the usual reassurance. Grown-ups sometimes have things on their minds, but the truth was far more complicated. Joel sat on our beige sectional sofa, laptop balanced on his knees, his teacher's methodical nature evident in how he'd organized our wedding photos into neat digital folders. After a year of marriage, we'd finally gotten around to watching the professional video our photographer had delivered months ago. I should have been excited to relive our special day, but something in Joel's posture made my stomach clench. "Come look at this part," he said, his voice carefully neutral in that way that meant trouble. "The reception footage." I moved closer, settling beside him on the couch we'd picked out together during happier times. On screen, our wedding reception at Riverside Bistro played out in beautiful high definition. The venue had been perfect, elegant but not pretentious, with string lights casting a warm glow over our guests as they celebrated our union. "See, there's the part where your brother Sam gave his toast," Joel said, fast-forwarding through the footage. "And here's where my mom danced with Maya." I watched myself on screen, radiant in my white dress, laughing with friends and family. It had been such a perfect day. Or so I'd thought. "Joel, what exactly are we looking for?" I asked, though part of me already knew. There was something in his tone, a careful control that reminded me of how he spoke to difficult students. He didn't answer immediately, just continued scrolling through the footage. Then he stopped. "Here," he said quietly. "This part." The camera had captured the outdoor terrace area, where some guests had stepped out for air during the dancing, and there, partially hidden behind a decorative pillar, was me, with Liam. Joel's best friend since high school, Liam Drury, had his hands on my waist. Our faces were close, too close, and then, clear as day, we kissed. Not a friendly peck, not an accidental brush of lips, but a real kiss that lasted several seconds before we broke apart and looked around nervously. "Marilla," Joel said, his voice still eerily calm, "would you like to explain this?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I'd been dreading this moment for a year, hoping the videographer hadn't caught that particular angle, that particular moment of weakness. "Joel, honey, it's not what it looks like," I began, falling back on the explanation I'd rehearsed in my head countless times. "I was drunk. We both were. It was just a stupid mistake. Wedding stress, you know. All the emotions running high. It didn't mean anything." He replayed the footage. Once, twice, 3 times. "It didn't mean anything," I repeated, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away, but his fingers remained limp in mine. "Baby, look at me. You know I love you. I married you that day. I chose you." After kissing my best friend. "It was a mistake. People make mistakes when they're drinking. The whole day was so overwhelming, and you were busy talking to your college buddies, and I felt, I don't know, neglected. Liam was just being nice, asking if I was okay, and then somehow..." I let my voice trail off, hoping he'd fill in the blanks with something more forgiving than the truth. Joel closed the laptop with a soft click. "How long had this been going on?" "What? Nothing was going on. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was just that one moment of stupidity. I've regretted it every day since." "Have you?" Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. Joel was a high school teacher, used to dealing with teenagers who thought they could lie their way out of anything. He had that same expression now, patient, waiting, like he already knew more than he was letting on. Of course I have, I said, injecting as much sincerity into my voice as possible. Joel, you have to believe me. It was our wedding day. I was emotional, overwhelmed, and yes, I drank too much, but it was nothing more than a stupid, meaningless mistake. He stood up, running his hands through his brown hair the way he did when he was thinking. At 35, Joel was still handsome in that quiet, dependable way that had first attracted me. He wasn't flashy like Liam, with his gym-toned body and easy charm, but he was solid, reliable, the kind of man who made a good husband and father, or so I'd thought. I need you to leave the room for a few minutes, he said. I have to make a phone call. Who are you calling? Please, Marilla, give me some space to process this. I wanted to argue, to stay and continue explaining, but something in his expression warned me not to push. Instead, I nodded and headed toward the kitchen, making a show of cleaning up Maya's dinner dishes. But I didn't really clean. Instead, I crept back toward the living room doorway, staying just out of sight while I listened to Joel dial a number. Liam, it's Joel. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. My blood turned to ice. I just watched our wedding video. I saw you and Marilla on the terrace. Joel's voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying tension. Just tell me the truth. Was it only that kiss, or was there more? The silence stretched on forever. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear Liam's response through the phone, but Joel had always been considerate about keeping his calls private. Finally, Joel spoke again. I see. And before the wedding? How long before? Another pause. Okay, thank you for being honest. I think we need some distance for a while. I hope you understand. I heard the phone click off, followed by a long, heavy sigh. My legs felt weak. Whatever Liam had told him, it wasn't good. I quickly retreated to the kitchen, frantically trying to look busy as Joel's footsteps approached. Marilla, he said from the doorway, we need to talk. The next morning, I threw myself into work, hoping the familiar routine of my office administrator job would provide some normalcy. Joel had barely spoken to me after his phone call with Liam, just kissed Maya goodbye, and left for his teaching job with a polite but distant, "Have a good day." The insurance office where I worked buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy. I'd been there for 5 years, long enough to build solid relationships with my coworkers, and I desperately needed their support right now. You look tired, hun, said Jessica, the receptionist, as I settled at my desk. Everything okay at home? Perfect opening. Oh, you know how it is, I said with a carefully crafted sigh. Joel's been so distant lately. I think the stress of teaching is getting to him, but he won't talk to me about it. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a stranger. It wasn't entirely a lie. Joel had been working longer hours this school year, staying late for faculty meetings, and bringing home stacks of papers to grade, but I conveniently left out the part about why he might be pulling away now. Men, Jessica said sympathetically, they bottle everything up. Have you tried suggesting counseling? I've hinted at it, but you know how proud he is. He thinks asking for help is a sign of weakness. I shook my head sadly. I just feel so alone sometimes, like I'm the only one trying to save our marriage. By lunch, I'd managed to plant similar seeds with 3 other co-workers. Nothing too dramatic. I wasn't ready to go full victim mode yet, but enough to establish the narrative that Joel was the problem in our relationship. Cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Elena. How did Joel react to the video? Call me. I stepped outside for privacy before dialing her number. Marilla, sweetheart, tell me everything, Mom said immediately. It's bad, Mom. He saw the kiss with Liam, and now he's acting like I committed some unforgivable sin. He's barely speaking to me. That man, Elena said with disgust. I've always said he doesn't appreciate you. You're young and beautiful, and he takes you for granted. No wonder you felt neglected enough to make a mistake. This was why I loved my mother. She always understood me. I keep trying to explain that it didn't mean anything, but he won't listen. He's being so cold and judgmental. I mean, it was our wedding day. I was emotional and overwhelmed. Doesn't that count for something? Of course it does. And frankly, if he'd been paying attention to his wife instead of ignoring you all evening, it never would have happened. This is as much his fault as yours. That's what I tried to tell him, but Marilla, listen to me. Joel has always made you feel like you're not good enough. Remember when you wanted to go back to school and he said you should focus on Maya instead? Or when you wanted to redecorate the living room and he said it was a waste of money? He's controlling, honey. This is just another way for him to make you feel guilty and small. I hadn't thought about those incidents in a while, but Mom was right. Joel did have a way of shutting down my ideas, always with practical reasons that were hard to argue with. But maybe his practicality was really just another form of control. I'm going to come over tonight, Elena continued. We need to have a family meeting about this. Joel needs to understand that marriages require forgiveness. I don't know if that's a good idea. Nonsense. I'm your mother, and I won't stand by while he emotionally abuses you over one tiny mistake. After we hung up, I felt somewhat better. At least someone was on my side. But as the afternoon wore on, I noticed some strange looks from my co-workers. During my break, I overheard Jessica talking quietly to another employee near the copy machine. Heard from her sister-in-law that there was some drama at their wedding. Something about the best man. Explains why she's been complaining about her husband lately. My stomach dropped. How had word gotten out so quickly? Joel was discreet. He wouldn't have told anyone at his school. But Liam worked at a local gym where gossip spread like wildfire. I was still processing this when my boss, Mr. Patterson, appeared at my desk. Marilla, could I see you in my office for a moment? His tone was professional but serious. I followed him into his glass-walled office, my palms sweating. I'm going to be direct, he said, closing the door behind us. I've been hearing some concerning rumors about your personal life. Now, normally I wouldn't get involved in employees' private matters, but when it starts affecting the workplace atmosphere... I don't know what you've heard, but it doesn't matter what I've heard. What matters is that you maintain professionalism here. Whatever is happening at home needs to stay at home. Are we clear? I nodded, humiliated. Yes, sir. Good. I hope you can resolve whatever issues you're facing. You're a valuable employee, and I'd hate to see personal problems impact your work. The rest of the day crawled by. I kept my head down, avoiding eye contact with co-workers who I was sure were whispering about me. By the time I got home, I was emotionally drained and ready for my mother's support. But when I pulled into our driveway, I saw Elena's car already there, and Joel's car too, which was unusual for this time of day. Through the living room window, I could see animated figures gesturing at each other. I rushed inside to find my mother and Joel in what appeared to be a heated discussion, while Maya sat at the kitchen table with her coloring books, clearly trying to ignore the adult drama. Always made her feel like she wasn't good enough, Elena was saying. Mrs. Vane, I understand you want to support your daughter, but you don't know the whole story, Joel replied, his teacher voice strained but still polite. I know my daughter, and I know she wouldn't have acted out unless she felt neglected and unappreciated in her marriage. Mum, I said quickly, setting down my purse. Maybe we should discuss this privately. But Elena was on a roll. Joel, you've been emotionally distant since the day you married her. Marilla has told me how you dismiss her ideas, how you make her feel stupid for wanting things. That's not true, Joel said quietly, but there was something broken in his voice. Isn't it? When was the last time you told her she was beautiful? When was the last time you made her feel desired and appreciated? A woman doesn't kiss another man unless her husband is failing to meet her emotional needs. I wanted to stop her, but part of me was glad someone was finally saying these things to Joel. Maybe he needed to hear how his behavior had contributed to our problems. Maya, Joel said suddenly, why don't you go play in your room for a while? Our daughter looked up with worried eyes. Are you and Mommy fighting? No, sweetheart, I said quickly. Grandma Eleanor and Daddy are just having a discussion. Go ahead upstairs. After Maya left, Joel turned to both of us with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, but also deeply hurt. "I think," he said carefully, "that we all need to take a step back. Mrs. Vane, I appreciate your concern for Marilla, but this is between my wife and me. Your wife is my daughter, and I won't let you bully her over one mistake." Bully her? For the first time, Joel's composure cracked slightly. "I discovered that my wife kissed my best friend at our wedding reception. I think I'm entitled to some time to process that. One kiss, one meaningless kiss when she was emotional and drinking. You're acting like she had an affair." Joel looked at me then, something unreadable in his expression. "Am I?" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Eleanor continued arguing, but I barely heard her. There was something in Joel's tone, in the way he was looking at me, that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. My phone buzzed with an email notification, probably work-related, but I glanced at it anyway. The sender was listed as a friend, and the subject line made my blood run cold. "You should be careful who sees your messages." 2 weeks later, I was determined to regain control of the narrative. Our friend group was planning a birthday celebration for Derek, one of Joel's teaching colleagues, at Riverside Bistro. Ironically, the same venue where our wedding reception had taken place. I saw it as an opportunity to show everyone that I was the reasonable one in this situation. While Joel was being dramatic and unforgiving, I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a dress that struck the right balance between attractive and appropriately married. I needed to look like a woman who was trying to hold her marriage together, not someone who was looking for attention from other men. Joel had been civil but distant over the past 2 weeks. He helped with Maya, did his share of household chores, and maintained polite conversation, but the warmth was gone. He slept in the guest room, claiming he needed space to think. I told myself this was just a phase, that once he calmed down and realized how much he was overreacting, things would go back to normal. The anonymous email had been bothering me, though. I'd checked my phone and social media accounts, but couldn't figure out what messages the sender might be referring to. I'd been careful to delete most of my conversations with Liam from before the wedding. Hadn't I? At the bistro, I made sure to arrive early so I could position myself strategically. I wanted to be surrounded by supportive friends when Joel arrived, if he even showed up. He'd been non-committal about attending. "Marilla," Sarah, Derek's wife, greeted me with a hug. "You look gorgeous. How are you holding up?" "Perfect." She'd heard something. "Oh, you know," I said with a brave smile. "Marriage is work, right? Joel and I are going through a rough patch, but I'm trying to stay positive." "I heard there was some kind of misunderstanding about your wedding video." I'd prepared for this. "It's so silly, really. Joel saw me talking to Liam on the terrace. You remember Liam, Joel's best friend? And he completely misinterpreted what he saw. You know how wedding videos can make innocent interactions look like something they're not?" "Oh no, that's terrible. Have you tried explaining?" "I've tried everything, but Joel can be so stubborn when he gets an idea in his head. He's always been a little jealous of my friendships with other men. I think this is just an excuse for him to act on those insecurities." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "Men can be so irrational about these things. I'm sure he'll come around once he calms down." I repeated similar conversations with 3 other friends over the next hour, carefully crafting my version of events. Joel was jealous and controlling. The wedding video showed nothing more than friendly conversation. I was the victim of his unreasonable suspicions and rigid personality, but not everyone was buying it. "Marilla," said Tom, one of Joel's closer friends, "I have to ask, was there really nothing going on with Liam? Because the way Joel's been talking—" "What has he been saying?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Just that he's hurt and disappointed. He won't give details, but he seems pretty convinced that something happened." "Joel's always been dramatic," I said with a slight laugh. "Remember how upset he got when I wanted to take that girls' trip to Vegas? He has trust issues, honestly. I think it comes from his parents' divorce when he was young." Tom looked uncomfortable. "I don't know, Marilla. Joel's one of the most level-headed guys I know. If he's this upset—" Before I could respond, a hush fell over our section of the restaurant. Joel had arrived, looking handsome but tired in a dark button-down shirt. Several friends greeted him warmly, but I noticed how his eyes swept the room, taking in who was sitting where, who was talking to whom. He made his way over to our group, nodded politely to me, and began chatting with Derek about school. I tried to join the conversation naturally, playing the part of the concerned wife who was trying to maintain normalcy despite her husband's unreasonable behavior. "Joel, honey, should I get you a drink?" I asked, touching his arm gently. "I'm fine, thank you," he replied, not unkindly but without any warmth. "He's been so stressed with work," I explained to the group, as if his coolness was just about job pressures. "You know how demanding teaching can be." Joel gave me a sharp look but didn't contradict me. Yet, as the evening progressed, I worked the room, telling my story to anyone who would listen. I was the neglected wife, Joel was the cold and judgmental husband, and the whole situation was a massive overreaction to an innocent misunderstanding. But I noticed some of our friends seemed uncomfortable with my explanations. A few people who had been warm and chatty earlier became more reserved as the night went on, and Joel was watching everything with those patient teacher eyes, like he was waiting for something. I was in the middle of explaining to another friend how Joel had trust issues when I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Marilla," Joel said quietly, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" My stomach clenched, but I smiled brightly. "Of course, sweetheart." He led me to a quiet corner of the restaurant, near the same terrace where the infamous kiss had taken place. For a moment, we just stood there, the sounds of our friends' laughter drifting over from the main dining area. "I've been listening to you tonight," Joel said finally. "Oh, I was just trying to keep things normal, you know, for our friends." "Were you?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a USB drive. "You should watch this when you get home." "What is it?" "Everything," he said simply. "The complete wedding video, and some other things you might find interesting." He handed me the drive, and I noticed his hand was steady while mine was shaking. "Joel, I don't understand." "You will," he said. "I think it's time for the whole truth to come out, don't you?" He walked away then, back to our friends, leaving me standing alone with the USB drive burning like a coal in my palm. I wanted to follow him, to demand an explanation, but something in his tone warned me that I was already in deeper trouble than I'd realized. I made my excuses and left the party early, claiming a headache. The drive home felt endless, my mind racing through possibilities. What could be on that drive besides the wedding video I'd already seen? At home, I waited until Joel returned and went to bed in the guest room, then crept down to the living room with my laptop. With shaking fingers, I inserted the USB drive. The first file was indeed the complete wedding video, but this version was longer and more detailed than what Joel had shown me before. I fast-forwarded to the terrace scene, and my heart sank. From this angle, it was even more obvious that the kiss was mutual, passionate, and definitely not innocent. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the second folder on the drive, labeled Messages. Screenshot after screenshot of text conversations between Liam and me. Not just from the wedding day, but from weeks before. Flirty messages, complaints about Joel, late-night conversations that had grown increasingly intimate. "Can't stop thinking about you since yesterday. Joel doesn't understand me like you do. I know this is wrong, but I can't help how I feel. After the wedding, we need to talk about us." Messages I thought I'd deleted, messages that told a very different story than the innocent mistake narrative I'd been spinning. At the bottom of the folder was a note in Joel's careful handwriting. "Liam forwarded these to me after our phone call. He said he felt too guilty to keep lying for you. He also said the kiss wasn't the beginning. It was supposed to be the start of something more." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Joel knew everything. He'd known for weeks, and he'd been letting me dig myself deeper with every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to paint him as the villain. The front door opened, and I quickly closed the laptop. Joel appeared in the doorway, still in his clothes from the party. "Did you watch it?" he asked. I nodded, unable to speak. "All of it?" Another nod. Then you know that I know, he said quietly. And you know that everyone else is going to know too. I'm done protecting you, Marilla. I'm done letting you make me the villain in your story. He turned to go upstairs, then paused. Oh, and Marilla, that anonymous email you got, that was from Liam's ex-girlfriend. Apparently, he'd been showing off your messages to friends at the gym, bragging about his conquest. She thought I deserved to know what kind of woman I married. The sound of his footsteps on the stairs was like a funeral march. I sat in the dark living room, surrounded by the wreckage of my carefully constructed lies, and realized that my marriage wasn't just in trouble, it was over. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Yes, Joel had evidence of my messages with Liam, but that didn't mean our marriage had to end. People worked through infidelity all the time. I just needed to approach this differently, less defensively, more remorsefully. I needed to show Joel that I was willing to fight for our relationship. I made his favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes and coffee, and waited for him to come downstairs. When he appeared, already dressed for work, he looked surprised to see the elaborate spread. Joel, honey, we need to talk, I said, using my most sincere voice. About everything. He poured himself coffee but didn't sit down. I'm listening. I know you saw the messages, and I know how bad they must look, but Joel, I need you to understand, I never actually cheated on you. Yes, I had feelings for Liam, and yes, we kissed at the wedding, but nothing else happened. Doesn't that count for something? You were planning to leave me, he said quietly. The messages talk about after the wedding and starting something new. I was confused. I was having cold feet about marriage. Lots of brides do. But I chose you, Joel. I married you. I said my vows and I meant them. Did you? Yes. Look, I made mistakes. I let my emotions get the better of me, and I developed feelings I shouldn't have had, but I never acted on them beyond that one kiss, and I've regretted it every single day since. Joel sat down across from me, but he didn't touch the pancakes. Marilla, do you hear yourself right now? What do you mean? You're still lying. Even now, with all the evidence laid out, you're still trying to minimize what happened. Just one kiss. Never actually cheated. Cold feet. These aren't explanations, they're excuses. I felt tears welling up, real ones this time, born of desperation rather than manipulation. Joel, please, I know I hurt you, but people make mistakes. We can work through this. We can go to counseling, rebuild trust. How can we rebuild trust when you won't even admit what you broke? I am admitting it. I'm telling you I was wrong. No, you're telling me you made mistakes. There's a difference. He stood up, grabbing his coffee mug. Marilla, you emotionally cheated on me for weeks leading up to our wedding. You kissed another man at our reception. You planned to continue the relationship after we were married. And for the past month, you've lied to me, to our friends, to your co-workers, trying to make me look like the bad guy. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you the truth without losing everything. So instead, you decided to gaslight me, to tell people I'm controlling and emotionally abusive, to play the victim while painting me as the villain. The word gaslight hit me like a slap. That's not what I was doing, isn't it? He pulled out his phone and began reading. Quote, Joel has trust issues from his parents' divorce. Quote, he's always been jealous of my friendships with other men. Quote, he makes me feel stupid for wanting things. Should I go on? My face burned with shame. People were asking questions. I had to say something. You had to lie about my character to protect your reputation. Joel, please. I'm done, Marilla. His voice was calm, but there was something final in it that terrified me. I've spent weeks trying to figure out if we could get past this, but I can't get past the person you've shown me you are. Not the cheating, the lying, the manipulation, the complete inability to take responsibility for your actions. He headed toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and you should know, I've made an appointment with a lawyer for this afternoon. A lawyer? The word came out as a whisper. I'm filing for divorce, Marilla, and I'm going to seek primary custody of Maya. You can't do that. She's my daughter, too. She's our daughter. and she deserves better than watching her mother lie and manipulate her way through life. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by untouched pancakes and tried to process what had just happened. This was really happening. Joel was serious about divorce. I called in sick to work and spent the day alternating between panic and anger. How dare he threaten to take Maya away from me? I was a good mother. Yes, I'd made mistakes in my marriage, but that didn't make me unfit as a parent. By afternoon, I was ready to fight back. I called my mother, who immediately offered to come over and help me strategize. I also reached out to a few friends, testing the waters to see who might be willing to support me in a custody battle. But the responses weren't what I'd hoped for. "Marilla," said Sarah, Derek's wife, "I have to be honest. After what Joel told Derek last night, I'm not sure I can take sides in this." "What did he tell Derek?" "About the messages, and about how you've been talking about him to people. Derek feels like Joel's been really patient, and you've been kind of unfair to him." I hung up, frustrated. Joel was poisoning people against me. My mother arrived in the late afternoon, armed with righteous indignation and a notepad for planning our defense strategy. "This is ridiculous," Elena declared. "One kiss and some flirty text messages, and he's acting like you committed murder. Men are so dramatic. He says I was emotionally cheating. Emotional cheating isn't even real cheating. You didn't sleep with anyone. You didn't have an affair. You had feelings. So what? Feelings aren't actions." Her validation felt good, but there was a nagging voice in the back of my head that sounded suspiciously like Joel's calm teacher voice. "But you were planning to turn those feelings into actions, weren't you?" I pushed the thought away. "The important thing now is protecting your rights," Elena continued. "We need to document everything. Joel's coldness, his threats, his attempts to turn people against you. If he wants a custody fight, we'll give him one." That evening, Joel came home with an official-looking envelope, which he handed to me without ceremony. "What is this?" "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," he said simply. Maya came running downstairs then, excited to see her daddy. She threw herself into his arms, and I watched as his stern expression melted into genuine love and warmth. For her, he was still the same devoted father he'd always been. It was only with me that he'd become this cold, distant stranger. "Daddy, will you read me a story tonight?" Maya asked. "Of course, sweetheart." "Can Mommy read with us?" Joel glanced at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old warmth. "If Mommy wants to." I nodded quickly, grateful for any chance to feel like a family again, even temporarily. We went through Maya's bedtime routine together: bath, pajamas, story time, maintaining a facade of normalcy for our daughter's sake. But after Maya was asleep, the coldness returned. "Joel," I tried one more time, "please don't do this. Don't break up our family over my mistakes. I can change. I can be better." He looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Marilla, I don't think you even understand what you'd need to change, and I can't spend the rest of my life wondering what you're really thinking, who you're really talking to, whether you're telling me the truth about anything. I would never lie to you again." "You're lying right now," he said quietly. "You're lying when you call this a mistake instead of a choice. You're lying when you say nothing else happened. Emotional affairs are still affairs. You're lying when you promise to change, because you can't change something you won't even acknowledge." With that, he went upstairs to the guest room, leaving me alone with the envelope containing divorce papers. I opened it with shaking hands and saw the words that would haunt me for months to come. Notice of divorce proceedings and temporary custody application. Joel wasn't just leaving me, he was taking Maya too. The weeks blurred into a nightmare of lawyers, evidence, and damage control. Joel's attorney built an airtight case: messages, recordings, witnesses, every lie I'd told, every contradiction laid bare. He'd been planning this for months while I'd been scrambling to keep appearances. The custody hearing came fast. Joel looked calm. I looked desperate. His lawyer portrayed me as manipulative and unstable, a woman who'd chosen deceit over honesty. My own defense fell apart under cross-examination. Every justification I offered, loneliness, confusion, a moment of weakness, was stripped away until only the truth remained. I'd lied, betrayed, and blamed everyone but myself. The judge ruled swiftly. Joel received primary custody. I got supervised visitation until completing counseling. Watching Joel lead Maya to his car afterward, her small hand in his, I realized what I'd really lost. Not just my marriage, but the family I'd taken for granted. 6 months later, I returned to court changed. Therapy had forced me to confront myself. The lies, the manipulation, the need to control the narrative. When the judge asked for my statement, I didn't fight. I hurt my family, I said, not just by what I did, but by how I tried to justify it. The courtroom went silent. The judge granted Joel primary custody, but expanded my visitation rights, citing my progress. Outside, Joel approached me. "What you said in there?" "Thank you." "I'm sorry," I said simply. As I walked away, I saw Maya wave from across the parking lot, and this time, Joel let her. It wasn't victory or redemption, just a fragile beginning. For the first time in years, I wasn't defending myself. I was facing the truth. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.